Welcome to the Accountability Framework Initiative's e-learning platform. I am Nazneen Halim and I will be your guide over the next 15 minutes to provide you with an overview of the Accountability Framework Initiative, the coalition behind it, and its key offering, the Accountability Framework. The framework is a global reference to support companies in setting and delivering on ethical supply chain goals. I will also introduce you to the other modules on this e-learning platform, which are designed to provide a closer look at each of the topics covered within the framework. So, let's get started. The production and trade of agricultural and forestry commodities like soy, beef and leather, palm oil, cocoa, rubber and timber amongst others is a major driver of deforestation, natural ecosystem conversion, and human rights abuses. These impacts in turn significantly contribute to greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity loss, and pose a threat to sustainable development. Due to this, companies that produce or source such commodities are facing increasing demands and pressure from customers, regulators, investors, and civil society to eliminate these negative impacts from their supply chains. More broadly, they face a growing global mandate for company action and disclosure on climate, nature, biodiversity, and sustainable development. In response, many leading companies have set goals and adopted practices to make ethical supply chains that are free from deforestation, conversion of natural ecosystems, and human rights violations, a core part of their own identities, brands, and ways of doing business. Moreover, for many companies, eliminating deforestation, conversion, and associated human rights abuses from their supply chains is the single most important thing they can do to meet their climate and nature targets. To do this successfully, companies need a clear reference for setting appropriate supply chain goals and developing effective systems and practices to achieve them. They also need clear and standardized means for reporting on progress to enable accountability without creating unnecessary reporting burdens. The Accountability Framework Initiative, or the AFI for short, was established to provide this much-needed source of clarity. The AFI is a collaborative effort to create a new normal where agricultural and forestry supply chains are protective of forests, other natural ecosystems, and human rights. The initiative is led by a diverse coalition of more than 25 environmental and human rights organizations from around the world. First published in 2019, the Accountability Framework was developed through a consultative process and reflects the consensus of the entire AFI coalition. The framework consists of 3 elements: the core principles, definitions, and operational guidance necessary for companies to set, implement, monitor, and report on the ethical supply chains. It can be applied worldwide across all agricultural and forestry commodities and is designed to guide companies at any position in the supply chain from start to finish. This broad scope allows companies to use the framework to take a holistic and aligned approach to pursuing their supply chain goals. The framework is available for free on the AFI's website at accountability-framework.org. There you can also find guides, tools, and other resources to help you apply the framework to meet your company's needs. Let's now take a closer look at what's inside the Accountability Framework. The Accountability Framework's 12 core principles support 7 key action areas that companies need to address to achieve ethical supply chains. Regardless of where a company is on its ethical supply chain journey, following these 7 action areas makes it simple to get started and helps them move forward with confidence and without having to reinvent the wheel. Let's take a brief look at the 7 action areas. Each one is the subject of its own module in this e-learning platform, enabling you to dive deeper into each topic once you finish this introductory module. The first action area is around setting and strengthening goals. All companies need clear goals as a foundation for achieving responsible supply chains. Whether setting new goals or reviewing existing ones, the accountability framework guides companies to set ambitious and practical goals around no deforestation, no conversion of natural ecosystems, and respect for human rights. Its guidance is aligned with market and stakeholder expectations, international norms, and the expectations for climate and nature target setting. This helps companies to integrate and streamline their efforts toward multiple sustainability goals. The framework's first 3 core principles support goal setting. You can learn more about this action area and the framework's core principles 1 to 3 in the module on setting and strengthening supply chain goals. The next action area addresses establishing company systems. Translating supply chain goals into practice requires companies to embed their goals into all of their production, procurement, and other business decisions. Internal management systems help ensure that companies establish the oversight, capacity, and processes to do so. The framework's core principle 4 serves as a reference for establishing effective company management systems. Learn more about this principle and how to apply it in the module on establishing company systems. Once you have your goals set and your internal management systems in place, you are ready to implement your commitments in your supply chain. How you do this will differ significantly depending on where you are in the supply chain. The next 2 action areas correspond with managing production and sourcing. Whether the company is an upstream producer or processor that owns or manages land, or a downstream buyer that sources from suppliers, all companies need to know that commodities were produced in compliance with their commitments and other obligations. For downstream companies that source commodities, they need to perform 2 sets of activities. First, they need to collect information about the origins of raw materials and the manner in which they were produced, which requires supply chain mapping and traceability. Second, companies need to communicate sourcing expectations to their suppliers to manage for compliance and to take action in instances of non-compliance. This often requires companies to engage with and support their direct suppliers to improve performance and to cascade commitments further up the supply chain to all indirect suppliers. Downstream companies often receive unclear or conflicting information about how to go about 2 sets of activities, and the Accountability Framework's core principles 5 and 6 and related guidance are designed to provide a clear reference for best practice. You can find more detail on this action area in the module titled Manage Supply Chains. Next, for companies that own or manage farms, forests, or plantations, and that produce or process raw materials, the framework's core principles 7 and 8 provide guidance on addressing deforestation, conversion, and human rights issues at the point of production. This includes practices related to land acquisition, site development, and land management that ensures long-term protection. In the case of adverse impacts to the environment or human rights, the framework's core principle 9 supports companies in designing and implementing appropriate remedy as well. Learn more about these principles and how to apply them in the module on managing production. Effective mitigation of supply chain risks often requires engagement beyond the company's own operations and supply chains. The framework's core principle 10 elaborates on how companies can effectively engage and invest in landscape or sectoral collaborations in order to address systemic issues at scale and have long-term impact in the company's sourcing regions. Learn more about this principle and how to apply it in the module on collaboration for landscape and sectoral sustainability. The next action area covers monitoring and verification. This allows companies to track their own performance and their suppliers' performance and relate this performance to any time-bound targets or milestones. Monitoring also serves as a primary information source for external reporting to demonstrate progress to buyers, investors, civil society, and other stakeholders. Company performance and compliance must be validated through verification processes that follow norms of good practice for credibility, rigor, and independence. The framework's core principle 11 elaborates on best practice for monitoring and verification, using different approaches based on the company's position in the supply chain. Learn more about this principle and how to apply it in the module on monitoring and verification. Lastly, reporting enables companies to communicate clearly about the environmental and social performance of their supply chains. Through Core Principle 12, the accountability framework guides companies on how to report credibly across 4 key elements of progress. These are exposure and risk, implementation and management systems, traceability and control, and compliance and outcomes on the ground. Your company can use the accountability framework's guidance to streamline both public sustainability reporting and business-to-business reporting, since both are needed to meet stakeholder expectations and support credible claims about performance. You can learn more about this action area in the module on reporting progress. Now that you've had an orientation with what the framework offers, let's spend a few minutes on how the framework has been used to mainstream ethical supply chains and the AFI's impact to date. The accountability framework has been adopted into policies, protocols, and systems of companies and financial institutions worldwide. In addition, a multitude of industry and multi-stakeholder initiatives, standards and implementation tools, reporting and assessment initiatives, and regulatory policies have incorporated elements of the framework into their guidance and methodologies. This increase in consistency and alignment around ethical supply chains has helped to streamline expectations for companies and reduce their disclosure burden. Companies can use the framework in tandem with any of these initiatives, standards, and tools. Let's take a quick look at some of the groups who are using the framework. Companies from across the supply chain and around the world have directly applied the framework as they set or refresh their supply chain goals, define key actions to implement these goals, and strengthen their monitoring or reporting practices. Companies have used the AFI self-assessment tool to benchmark their existing policies against the accountability framework's core principles and fill in gaps where needed. Additionally, they have used the framework's guidance and definitions to guide practical and effective action. In addition to companies directly adopting framework elements, numerous industry and multi-stakeholder initiatives with a combined reach of thousands of companies have used the framework as a basis for their own sector-specific standards and guidelines. This includes industry associations like the Consumer Goods Forum Forest Positive Coalition, the Global Platform for Sustainable Natural Rubber, and the UK Roundtable on Sustainable Soy. It also includes initiatives focused on responsible finance. The AFI has also worked closely with leading reporting systems to align requirements and indicators for corporate reporting on topics within the framework scope. This alignment supports standardization, reduces company reporting burden, and provides companies with confidence that the actions they take to eliminate deforestation, conversion, and human rights violations from their supply chains will be aligned with common disclosure requirements. Companies may use these existing reporting platforms to track and report progress in accordance with the accountability framework. We hope that this brief introduction has given you a clear sense of the AFI and the accountability framework, and how companies and others have applied it to help strengthen and align actions towards ethical supply chains. Each of the modules offered in this e-learning platform will take you into different aspects of the framework's guidance and provide you with the understanding necessary to start applying it in your company. We update these modules and add new modules to the platform periodically to reflect new and updated guidance from the AFI, so be sure to sign up for alerts in your profile to keep aware of these. And you can always reach out directly to the AFI team with any questions and to discuss how the framework can best support you on your journey to ethical supply chains.